geology perspectives. So when folks are talking about geology, which is kind of the foundation we stand on, it gets fascinating. But my specific introduction to, they would have been geological chemists, I suppose might be the term. But this was Exxon Production Research's facility doing a study of our continent, mostly America, but I know other data was tied in there, but what I saw was American mapping. So this lab in Houston got samples from their wells and other wells across the nation at heights all across the well depths, in part to study the geology and terrain and understand the geology of oil production, the layers they've got to drill through, the hardness of the layers, how long, when do they have to change bits, because they will change bits depending on what they've got to drill. They'll change sand compounds, the mud that holds the drill strings up and helps lubricate the drill strings so they don't wear the casing that's got the drill string in it out. It doesn't ring. So there's hydraulic dampening in that drill mud as well as holding up a few mile drill string. So Exxon in Houston, for a decade before I got there, and a decade after I left probably, because I was only in there for, I don't even have the time. It was either a week or 2 weeks. I usually had a time slot of 3 to 5 days at a facility, and then a return trip might be necessary. But so Exxon was taking rocks, taking liquid samples, and converting them into samples that could be put into an optical emission spectrometer. And optical emission spectrometry offers an accuracy that, on elemental analysis, that is only beaten by a few other machines. So there's specifics to this, but so this instrument has channels for each element that we've been able to identify optical emissions from, and that's a catalog in part that was developed by the Vatican sciences and Vatican institutions, so the knowledge is old and it's been added to. So there they would take these samples, and besides identifying the elements, because remember, they're looking for mining things. You can mine using drilling. You can steam mine, you can water mine, high pressure water, or you can put chemicals down there that will leach minerals out of the soil and then try to pull those free chemicals up somewhere else, which is called leach mining, in situ leach mining. So a lot going on in what that research can teach us about, could teach us about. What I saw was aquifer mappings, and they were using isotopic elements and the decay properties and the specifics of their identification to map groundwater flow through down to our deep water aquifers. So on the way down, these cross sections were cut and taken. These analyses were done. This is an intro to GIS data, because you not only have a time and a date stamp, you have a hard location, and you have a depth. You put that you pulled a core from 1,000 feet, from 5,000 feet, from 10,000 feet. So now you've got a depth. You just have created the first instance I ever saw unconsciously of what would be GIS data. So what Exxon found using those studies is the extent of aquifers across America, underground, no-seums. Not a lot of surface water work was done inside this experiment, but I'm sure, or this studies, but I'm sure all the information could be related, would be, maybe related, because the funders of the research besides Exxon were the USGS, it was the Department of Energy, it was other sources that can be found in federal contracts if you go back to 1970s, 1980s, and look for the name Exxon Production and Research out there, or some of its affiliates. And it could have been through someone like Battelle. Battelle was used as a major contractor that subcontracted other major contractors for information, and they have done massive amounts of environmental studies that you can make your own heads or tails of. So there you go. There's a relationship between elemental isotopic identification and oil interests, mineral interests, geological interests, how squishy stuff gets put where it is and we can find and harvest it. These are all just fascinating things and the time scales that allow them to happen. So, all right, another one.